Yes! Hello, my beautiful friends. What an amazing day it is. Welcome back and happy Monday. I hope your weekend was incredible. And you're coming back on this new day, 1 week away until the new president is ensconced once again in the White House. Hopefully, you're as energized as I am. Excited about it. We've got business to attend to today. Some Jack Smith updates. Jack Smith is gone, and it was embarrassing how they let him right off into the sunset. They shoved his departure in a notice to Judge Canon in a footnote at the very end of their filing. Jack Smith left. Pathetic, just like his cases. He's not even a real boy. Now he's not even at the DOJ anymore. But we have not forgotten about Jack Smith. And so we're going to go through this. I've got a bunch of stuff queued up. Quick preview on what is coming up. Then, of course, we'll jump into it. Jack Smith updates. We've got some Trump comments over on True Social that we'll parse through because he's celebrating it. But I want to go through the filings in Judge Canon's courtroom because Trump's team, let's say Walt and Carlos, also submitted a filing to say, don't release the reports from Jack Smith now that he's gone. Well, what we'll see is Jack Smith responded to this in this filing, and then Judge Canon came out with a new order, and it's an interesting order. But as it stands right now, the January 6th report can be released, and we're coming back on the Florida document to talk about that. That's volume 2. So we'll have another hearing on that later in the week, but all of that updates comes from the Florida classified documents case. We got some Senate Democrats with updates and more posts from Trump. Then we're going to turn our attention to Fani Willis because she owes Judicial Watch some money. She's got to pay over 20 G's over to Judicial Watch for being such a terrible person. And we'll go through this filing that just came down. Actually, this came down earlier this month, but it was just made publicly available. Georgia has a difficult time releasing their documents. And apparently the Georgia courts also have a difficult time spelling the word Georgia. Wow. This is an order from a court. Oh, Judge Robert McBurney writes an order from the Superior Court of Fulton County, state of Georgia. Happens to everybody, man. But it's very apropos for Fani Willis and this whole conversation. So we're going to learn more about Georgia today and see what they have going there. Then Fani Willis came out. She had a press conference today where she was ranting and raving about something or other. So we'll see what that was about and what else is going on in Fani land, because she's also taking her case where she was disqualified up to the Supreme Court of Georgia or Georgia. And our friend Phil Holloway, who's right next door on YouTube and all the other places, has shared this document. He got his copy of the petition up to the highest court there in Georgia because Fani really wants to be on the Trump case and does not want to be booted off because she's now been booted off. So she's making a lot of noise and really spreading around that noxious odor all over the courts in Georgia. So we'll talk about that. And then we have to check in on some of the worst people in the world. People like Michael Cohen, convicted perjurer, liar, and disbarred loser. He is now begging for a pardon on MSNBC. He's like, listen, before Joe Biden's term ends, somebody's got to clear my name because I've been involved in a ton of criminality. We'll hear what he has to say about it, and then we'll listen to these two people, some of the additionally worse people, even worse than Cohen, if that's the thing, because Cohen's just an idiot. These people are conniving. But this is Rubin, and she left the Washington Post, and Norm Eisen is now, he was a major, I would say, unindicted co-conspirator who should be indicted at some point, but working to stop Trump. Now they're launching a podcast together, and I can't wait to share with you how they sound. It's going to be hilarious to listen to this. And Stephen Chung, Trump's spokesperson, came out and called these people out of touch cucks. Whoa. Which we don't, normally use that phrase here, but it's true. And it's coming from the president's spokesperson. So we have to parlay that around. So Stephen Chung came out. We'll listen to this mental person and this mental person. And so we've got a lot of mental cases coming up today at the end of the show. Another one. Look, it's just nonstop here today. So tons of stuff coming up. Really glad that you're here in with us. I hope your week was outstanding last week, and your weekend was even better. And I hope that you're as excited as I am for our inauguration watch party, baby. And so hopefully you're getting your tickets at watcherlodge.com. Grab your tickets. They're $100. We've got a photo booth. We've got balloons coming. Not a photo booth, but a photo thing we're going to take photos in front of. We've got a huge video screen. We got a ton of friends coming, and we cannot wait to see you come join us. Watcherlodge.com. Grab your tickets. We're 7 days out, and so make your arrangements. Come and join us. It's the Mar-a-Lago of the Southwest. If you can't make it out to D.C., this is the next best place, all right? We all kind of wish we were there. But if you're on the West Coast especially, come join us. Watcherlodge.com. Tickets are available. Grab yours, $100, and bring a friend. We'd love to see you both come join us. All right, so, by the way, the heck was I going to say? Housekeeping note. Tomorrow, we are planning on being live early, bright and early, so 9 o'clock Eastern time, because we have a bunch of confirmation hearings happening tomorrow, Wednesday, and on Thursday. So the plan is, in lieu of the live show, we'll just be here for the confirmation hearings. Pam Bondi, Rubio, Pete Hegseth is tomorrow, Kristi Noem's this week. Did I already say Rubio? Ratcliffe, tons of people this week. So we'll be here. Thank you for subscribing and joining us when we go live, bright and early, tomorrow morning for Pete Hegseth and others. All coming up tomorrow. So thanks for joining us. All right, now, let's get into the business on the day, because we've got some good news here. The president is happy. Jack Smith is gone. He resigned very quietly and pathetically in a footnote that we'll share here in a minute, and is now fleeing the DOJ, probably after he shredded all of his files. And now the DOJ is still trying to finagle the release of his report, which we'll talk about. Judge Canon is doing some interesting things on that. But Trump is celebrating Jack's pathetic departure. The illegal prosecutor is gone. Trump says about Jack, the stench of deranged Jack Smith and his thugs is gone. They were sent packing after spending over $100 million, destroying the lives of many people and families who will never be the same again. Deranged Jack accomplished nothing except to show what complete losers my political opponents are. Jack, Brat, Molly Gaston, Highlighter Girl, and the rest of them who weaponized the DOJ to try to take Trump out literally and throw him in jail so that he could not be a part of the campaign. They failed, and now Jack is running scared. Trump also posted this, says deranged Jack was fired today by the DOJ. He is a disgrace to himself, his family, and his country. After spending over $100 million on the witch hunt against Trump, he left town empty-handed. No convictions, 2 dismissals in both cases, and a good argument that the special counsel was illegitimate from the beginning, and he stole $100 million that I hope Trump investigates. Illegally apportioned money ripped off from the government to prosecute a political opponent. I hope every dollar is accounted for and scraped back. But that will never happen. But we do want accountability. So Jack is now gone. And let me show you what's happening in the court filings, because even Politico is calling this, saying Jack Smith ends with a footnote. Womp, womp. Pathetic. And I'll show you what his footnote looks like just so you can see how ultimately pathetic it is. This is from the government's response. Okay, so they filed a 135-pager with a bunch of additions, but the substance of the motion was in the 11 pages. We'll come back and read this, but let me just show you. Right here at the bottom, after the conclusion, after the new attorney, Elizabeth Shapiro, comes in, all the way tucked down here in this little loser footnote on page 10 of their filing, it says here, the special counsel completed his work and submitted his final confidential report on January 7th, 2025, and separated from the department on January 10th. Bye, Jack! That's all you get? In a footnote 3 on page 11 after the conclusion? Pathetic. He completed his work, submitted his report. Now he's going back to The Hague over there in Europe, where nobody wants him here or there either. So this confidential report must be done so there can be no changes done to this thing. And what's so funny about this is now that Jack Smith is gone, watch this. The Senate Judiciary Democrats posted this. They said, oh, guess what? Now Senate Judiciary Democrats are pressing Merrick Garland to preserve all of his records related to Jack Smith and to President Trump. It's like, what? He just left. The shredder van just pulled away like 2 minutes ago. Where were you 10 minutes ago before the shredder van arrived? Hello? Yeah, we want all the documents too. We want all the emails. We want all emails that went back and forth between Senate Judiciary Democrats and anybody even remotely connected to this investigation. On Jack's team, we know Fani may have had emails. We want those. We know Tish may have had emails. We want those too. We want everything. So don't come out here and pretend, Democrats, like you're on the side of transparency and accountability when you people have been exploiting him for the last several years. So here's what Trump's people said. And when I say Trump's people, we're including them all together because they're essentially on the same team. But this is technically Waltz and Carlos's case, the two ongoing defendants in the classified documents case. And they said to Judge Canon over the weekend the following. They said, listen, you should extend your stay, the injunction that would prohibit Jack Smith from releasing his book reports, stop those from coming out. Because Jack Smith is disqualified, and you have the right to do that. The government minimizes your role, Judge Canon, in overseeing its own trials and your words. And Judge Canon said Jack Smith is not a real boy and threw him out. The relief requested is not contrary to the law, but rather consistent with longstanding practice. It's also consistent with principles of equity, not that kind of equity, okay? In the law, before they perverted that word, being equitable used to actually mean something. Now it means that everything gets worse or something. I think that's what it means, right? Like when they come in and they say, we're going to redistribute the infrastructure in equitable manners. I guess that means no one gets water in fire hydrants or something. But in the law, it just kind of meant that we wanted to balance the scales, right? You see that used a lot, and then they perverted that word like everything else they perverted. Now, the government, driven by political priorities that have no place in a criminal trial, talking about illegitimate Jack, seeks to strong-arm its way through this orderly process. And this court, you, Judge Canon, should enforce your order. You said Jack Smith was not a real boy, and so you better make that have some teeth to it. Now they're trying to view this as a political inconvenience and saying Jack has every right to give Garland the book report. So they say, Canon, you have jurisdiction to maintain the status quo and to enforce the conduct that is going to taint this trial. The government's position is that the mere filing of a notice divests this court of jurisdiction to enforce its own orders. They say that's obviously a problem here. You said Jack is not a real boy. Now he's acting like he is a real boy. So do your words matter or not? And temporary orders like this one are also subject to appeal. And so the government is misstating and misrepresenting the law, saying that you don't have any jurisdiction here. They cite Coinbase on referencing interlocutory appeals, which is a very common case. We've talked about it a lot here. Now they say Congress, they give us a hypothetical, which we'll fast forward through. But they say the merits of Trump, Walt, and Carlos's request for emergency relief are not an issue in the appeal. The only question is about the injunction. And the court did not enter the injunction on the merits of the request. It was temporary while we were appealing to the 11th Circuit. And so you can and you should do this. The government attempts to litigate the merits of this dispute, but we're not doing that here. We've got several bases to restrict AG's release of this. The most significant of them is that if they release the report on Trump from Jack's fake office, it could impact a fair trial for these two continuing co-defendants. An extension of the stay here would allow us to continue to litigate this. The government is talking about what the Attorney General can do and whether Jack is a subordinate official to him, but it cannot be deemed concluded because this court disqualified Jack from the very case. All this stuff that he's saying he has the power to do and can do, and Merrick Garland and all these stuff, it's irrelevant. He's not a real boy. Nor, although the special counsel resigned, the matter is not concluded. The appeal was filed and it was briefed by Jack. It still continues. And to the extent to which the former or disqualified counsel is still operating, the defendants are still under the protective order of the court. So if they're still under the jurisdiction of the court as it relates to their protective order, in other words, if Carlos and Walt can't say or do certain things, this court still has jurisdiction over them. So why wouldn't it have jurisdiction over Jack? Another reason that the government cannot rely on this portion of the law is because he was also unlawfully appointed. The final report was prepared unlawfully after you found he was already unconstitutional. And so it is a legal nullity under a binding order of dismissal from you, Judge Canon. And as a result, all of this is not subject to that provision. There's no obligation to release the report. Merrick Garland is authorized to do so. He's not authorized to do so because his prosecutor who wrote it was illegal. Now, the DOJ seeks to ignore this court and you, Judge Canon. And worse yet, they're trying to exploit a loophole by claiming that because Jack was disqualified from the case, his investigation concluded and referred it to a local office. Now, this case presents an unprecedented scenario of an attempted release to Congress while the case is still going. There's a lot of litigation to be concluded. We are up in the 11th Circuit right now. So such a scenario is not contemplated. Now, the government asserts that whether the case will ever proceed is presently uncertain. Now, it's nice that they're saying that right now. And while we view this court's order of dismissal as the correct reading of the law, the mere fact of an appeal means that this could be reversed and there's prejudice. So the government also overstates their middle ground. Their proposal removes judicial oversight over the flow of publicity. Remember, Jack just wants to give this to the senators in the Judiciary Committee to allow them to leak it. So they won't publish it because, if the DOJ publishes it, then it would harm Walt and Carlos, the two other co-defendants. But if senators leak it, then I guess that's better because that won't harm them as much. The DOJ seeks to pillory these criminal defendants, and the proposed parameters are unclear. They say, what? What are the restrictions on members of Congress who can review it? Can they publish it? Where is the government's in-camera review going to occur? Is it going to be in Jack's office or in Congress? Are members permitted to talk about it? Are they permitted to discuss the case at all now that they've seen the confidential parts of it? Are they permitted to disclose their reactions? Can they talk about and wage war against them for fundraising like Judge Mercan's daughter did? Does public discussion of the report relieve the defense of their protective order? Are they still gagged or can they also talk about whatever they want? If this case is going to be tried in the court of public opinion, is the defense not at least entitled to an adversary process in that forum? All these questions warrant consideration. We need a hearing. A hearing will ensure that our due process rights are properly considered. And Judge, as the defense noted before, there is no way for this court to bind members of Congress. You can't do that. Nor does the government propose any assurances to insulate against the leaks, which are obviously going to happen. So Congress is a political body, right? And its individual members have political aims, and this is a political case. So the government's claim that disclosure to Congress is a safeguard is obviously not true. This is an era in which a draft of a Supreme Court decision on abortion was leaked. The functioning of the political press demands and depends on leaks, and if these leaks occur here, our defendants have no recourse. Members of the judiciary in the House are not entitled to access in a pending criminal case, especially not privileged in grand jury materials. So there's no reason to provide that here. Any access must only be provided after a court process, due process, remember, and a hearing, not unilaterally by the DOJ when they want to just publish something to Congress. The government's response illustrates the need for this court to pass a stay, and you need to stop the release of both of these volumes. In response to this court's order, the government says Volume 1 does not concern this prosecution. Volume 1 is the J6 case. Volume 2 is the Florida Classified Documents case. They say they're separate. The Trump defense says, no, they're not. They reference each other and they're commingled to a degree that you cannot disambiguate them. They say that is non-responsive. The question was whether Volume 1 directly or indirectly refers, relies, or bears in any respect upon any evidence or argument related to the charges, and whether understood liberally, it contains any of the following, of the foregoing, okay? Are they referencing each other? Are they commingled? The government has set forth only what appear to be the most formal articulations of Volume 1's reference to Volume 2. Those references were deemed significant to Jack, and a review of the entirety of Volume 1 is expected to reveal the full interrelatedness of grand jury testimony, witness attacks by the government, conspiracy, and other criminal theories for which Jack sought to vouch for in the report. The protective order principle applies fully where the government seeks to try this case in a court of public opinion. A figure as a co-conspirator in this case, the government has sought far more reaching gag orders than anything here. Now, what they're not telling you, Judge Canon, what they're not disclosing, either in its public filings or in its sealed supplement, who reviewed Volume 1, what the person who reviewed Volume 1 knows about the sealed or even unsealed proceedings in this case, what standards of evaluations were used to support this belief of the United States. Now, this is amplified by the fact that three attorneys, two of them civil lawyers, who signed the government's brief are brand new to the case, and they're not familiar with the facts or nuances. Jack's office is gone, so they threw these newbies on. The attorneys asserting no connection do not know the significance of certain matters in the report. They don't understand the connections between the two cases. They don't have a well-versed understanding of the evidence. There is anticipated overlap between the witnesses and the two cases, and the facts and circumstances are inextricably intertwined insofar as the conduct targeted in both investigations was around the same time involving the same people. And so that evidence would not be admissible in Walt Nauda's trial, and it would taint the jury pool. So the significant overlap between the two cases, both temporally, in time, and with respect to witnesses and evidence, combined warrants an independent review of Volume 1. Do not release that either. Now, counsel can proffer that Volume 2, so the attorneys for the defense say, we've read it. We know Volume 1 is referenced in Volume 2. So when Jack's talking about Florida, he's also hearkening back to J6. The report has a coordinated message and intent to the best of counsel's understanding. Now, the government invites this court to review Volume 1 in ex parte fashion, so on your own, Judge. But that request is inconsistent with due process that the government is saying. You look at it. But that's inconsistent with our adversarial system. The defense, too, should be permitted to examine Volume 1. So the government has it. They're showing it to you, Judge, and they don't want us to see it. That's ridiculous. We should see it. We should be able to lodge sealed objections to be dealt with in a sealed hearing. Ex parte applications are disfavored when only the judge meets with one side, because a fair hearing requires a reasonable opportunity to the opposite side. And the government has not offered any argument to support its ex parte review of Volume 1, the J6 case. Again, it's attempting to avoid the adversarial process in the interest of politics. There's no prejudice that would result by allowing us to look at it. We're not going to release anything. We could have a sealed proceeding. There is no reason to block the defense from the process, but the government just wants to publicly release it. There's no harm to them if we have an opportunity to review. So they say the Trump defense and team, they request that the court stay its expiration of your injunction, of your stay, holding, do not allow the report to be released moving forward, and hold a hearing signed by Stanley Woodward, who's going in as counsel to the White House in some fashion over there, on behalf of Carlos and Walt. So a nice filing. Obviously, they're doing everything they can to try to commingle the reports. The government is doing the opposite, to say there is nothing in Volume 1 that references Volume 2 and vice versa. So Jack Smith's case is now being handled by other DOJ hacks, which is the default status for people at the DOJ. The special counsel completed his work and submitted his final report on January 7th. And Jack Smith separated from the department on January 10th. Bye, Jack. Don't go too far, because we're going to see you back here on the other end of the V this time. So you can see this is what the government sent, and I'll just hit the highlights on this one. They say, Your Honor, you have to release this report. There's 2 volumes here, okay? Volume 1 is about J6 in 2020. Volume 2 is about the classified documents. They say, you don't have any jurisdiction, Judge Canon. Okay, sorry. You can't release this even if you wanted to. The court is prohibited from hearing this motion, and there's no jurisdiction here because we're up at the 11th Circuit and they're handling this case right now. But in addition to the jurisdiction argument, you can't release this anyway. You have to release this anyways. An extended injunction without basis on Garland's prerogative, he can manage the DOJ. And he got a report that was prepared by a subordinate. And so he's allowed to release that. The laws say that he can determine that in public interest, we need to release this. And the injunction doesn't give you the power to stop it. Now, they speculate that the department is going to violate or leak this stuff. They say that's ridiculous. We're taking precautions, says the DOJ. We're going to put an in-camera review of the document to 4 members of Congress and allow them to review it. This argument is resting on conjecture, saying that they'll leak it. These are esteemed members of Congress. Why would they do anything like that? There's no case that they can cite where that concern that Congress is going to be leaky prohibits the disclosure. And so an extended injunction to stop the release is even less warranted. Merrick Garland has already determined that he's going to release volume 1. That volume is about the election. They say they identify no Article 3 standing issue that would justify that not releasing this because they don't have any claim in the other case. And this holds true even if this court were to grant Trump's motion to intervene, because he doesn't have any basis to block volume 1 either. None of the arguments raised would prejudice them. Trump is no longer a defendant. Okay, they dismissed him from the case. And even if Trump had colorable grounds for blocking 1, there's still no basis for allowing him to do that. Beyond the now allayed concerns of prejudice, there's no basis for allowing this. And even if Jack were invalidly appointed, it would still not follow that the report was improper. What? There can be no serious question that Garland had at minimum the statutory to hire Jack Smith and his staff as employees. Yeah, but he didn't. He didn't do that. Okay? If he would have done that, this whole thing would have been different. The Supreme Court has recognized that investigative reports can be prepared. There is, therefore, no appointments-based reason to doubt his authority to draft a report, much less prevent him. Yes, there is. What a stupid paragraph this is. He was illegally appointed and he was not hired as an employee by their own arguments, right? They made that argument multiple times, saying that Jack Smith falls into the certain category and he's got power appointed by the Reno regs. So he is illegitimate under the appointments clause and he was never hired. So all of that money and every stinking piece of paper that Jack Smith wrote his little report on was written on stolen illegal paper. Every ink blot that was coming out of that disgusting overpriced government printer is illegal. Every character should be charged as a separate offense. The Attorney General, in the Senate confirmed head of the Department of Justice, is vested with authority to supervise everybody. Okay, that's great. He can supervise officers. Jack is not one of them. He can supervise employees. Jack Smith is not one of them. The Attorney General thus has the authority to decide whether to release a report prepared by his subordinates. Jack is illegal. He never was one of those. That authority is inherent under the law. But okay, that's great. Sure, he has that power if he has actual employees working under him. So their objection to his appointment has no bearing on his authority. Yes, it does. This is ridiculous. The court should reject their request for a hearing. As explained above, this court lacks jurisdiction, and that reason alone should be enough to deny this continual injunction. And so in conclusion, do not make us continue to hold this report back. We want to release it, especially volume 1 of the final report. And then once again, after all of that was written, they came back and Jack got sent off into the pasture in a tiny, pathetic little footnote right there. Footnote 3. The special counsel completed his work and separated from the department on January 10th. What a loser. They didn't even do a nice press briefing or a press release like they did for Christopher Wray. And they didn't give Jack Smith like 10 minutes to come out here and say, gosh, it's been a real big journey for you and my family. And I just want to spend 55 minutes thanking everybody I've ever known at the DOJ who is as corrupt and as problematic as I am. And just go through the list. And then they just rub each other's shoulders and massage each other's nipples in the DOJ offices and ingratiate themselves with themselves, because that's what they do normally. But this was nothing, man. They're like, get out of here, Jack. And he's running out with a potato sack full of shredded documents. No question about it. So Elizabeth Shapiro sent that one out, and that went into Judge Canon. Obviously, the argument that people anywhere can write reports. Like, I can write a report, send it to Merrick Garland, and he can just take it because he's got authority to do it, even if you're not a lawfully appointed prosecutor or a hired employee. That's how it works, apparently. And Judge Canon came back and issued her order. Judge Canon, Southern District of Florida, now allowing portions of Jack Smith's report, Volume 1, to go out. Volume 2, she wants to hear more. But here's what she released. This is an order denying the emergency motion that would stop the J6 2020 report from coming out. She's going to reserve the ruling as to Volume 2. We're going to come back for a hearing on that later this week or next, and then stop the release of Volume 2 until we resolve this issue. Here's what Canon writes. All right, this cause came before me. We got a bunch of people filing stuff. The emergency motion seeks to stop the entirety of Jack Smith's final report from coming out. And Canon, you can see she has capitalized final report. And for a while, she was bundling them together. Then Jack, very conveniently, Volume 1'd it and Volume 2'd it, so he could bifurcate the two to release one, because he knew that he was in trouble on the Florida case. So she tells us, as described by the United States in its filings, Volume 1 is the J6 case, election interference, and Volume 2 is this case, the classified documents case, which is the subject of this court's order granting the motion to dismiss based on Jack Smith's illegality. She said, I dumped this case because he's not a real boy. Now, the United States, DOJ and Jack, who's not there anymore, opposes any restriction on the release of Volume 1. They want that to go out publicly, and I imagine it's coming soon. And they agree that Volume 2 should not be released to the public because it concerns the ongoing legal rights of Walt and Carlos. But nevertheless, they seek permission to release a limited amount of Volume 2 to specified members of Congress because they say Congress is very curious about this. And so here's what Canon says. The emergency motion is denied as to Volume 1. So we can no longer hold that back. The United States represents, and she's quoting them, that it believes that nothing in Volume 1 of the final report directly or indirectly refers, relies, or bears in any respect upon any evidence or argument related to any of the individual charges in the Florida case. Now, she's quoting them, right? See that right there? So you guys are representing it. Canon saying, I have not read it yet, but you're telling me it's got nothing to do with the other report. The United States further indicates in the same filing and reiterates in a sealed addendum that we cannot see. She says some of that she'll show us. She says that Volume 1, according to the government, makes two generalized references to this criminal case. So actually, Volume 1 does reference Volume 2, but it doesn't reference the names Nada or De Oliveira, and it doesn't address any conduct by them, evidence against them, or the charges against them. So it references it, but not by name. They also said, other than these two references, the government says, there are no other references to the classified documents case in Volume 1 of the final report. So like that better be true, okay? There better not be another reference in there. If there's a third reference in there, whoop. Based on these representations, the court sees an insufficient basis to stop the release of Volume 1. The court's order granting the motion to dismiss the indictment based on the appointments clause was confined to this proceeding, right? She didn't dismiss the J6 case. And if the J6 report has nothing to do with the classified documents report, she's saying, I don't have jurisdiction. And hence, this court's authority to enforce its own orders is similarly confined to this proceeding and to the remaining defendants in this proceeding. They also tell us in footnote 1 In a letter submitted to by the United States to this court, Jack Smith states as follows. He says, because Volume 2 discusses the conduct of Mr. Trump's alleged co-conspirators in the classified documents case, Walt and Carlos, and consistent with the policy, Volume 2 should not be publicly released while their case remains pending. And I can't believe they haven't dismissed those yet already. But if they did dismiss it against Walt and Carlos, it would just look obvious that they are only doing that to release the report. But here we go. It tells the emergency motion from Canon as to Volume 2 now presents a contested factual and legal issue that must be resolved in an expedited basis following a full briefing and hearing. All parties agree that Volume 2 expressly and directly concerns this case. All parties also appear to agree that public release of Volume 2 would be inconsistent with the fair trial rights of Walt and Carlos or Justice Department policy. And despite these concerns, the U.S. still seeks limited disclosure of Volume 2. They want to give this to Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer because they say there are public interests and congressional leadership needs to be apprised. Now, the defense vigorously opposes this request, relying on their due process rights, local Florida rules, and they know that this report is ultimately going to be publicly disseminated and leaked. Now, in light of these contested issues, Judge Canon says, we need a hearing on this case at the end of the week, January 15th, 17th, Friday, 2 p.m., Fort Pierce Division. Any response to this is due on the 14th and a reply is due on the 16th. And you should let me know if there is an agreement about the release of Volume 2. And so all that will be resolved later in the week. Now, to the extent that counsel for the United States has any doubt about the representations made to this court about the absence of any connection, because these are new attorneys on the Jack Smith team. I mean, the team is now gone, right? So they're evaporating. So the DOJ brought on new prosecutors who were not part of the original team. So they're making this avowal to the court. Your Honor, we promise, and we've got a duty of candor to the court, says between Volume 1 and the factual legal issues, they say that there's a belief, right? There's a belief that nothing in Volume 1 relates to this case. Okay, you better be damn sure about that. There's a court order requiring specific clarifications. Now, counsel, the judge is warning them, they are reminded of their obligation. Lawyers have a duty of candor to the court. Can't lie or be manipulative or hide things. You got to be open and honest and forthcoming. So if you say that, oh, I believe that there's no reference there, and then we get the report and it's riddled with it, you're in trouble. And their duty as officers of this court to ensure complete accuracy and completeness in their representations. So belief better be pretty dang sure. Now, of course, what is the recourse for this? If the report comes out and it is full, what's Canon going to do? Maybe she calls them in here, issues an order to show cause. You were dishonest about this. Now you guys get sanctioned, but the report's out. So you can't unring that bell. Now, as a result of a similar motion, no hearing scheduled on that until we continue forward. Now, the court is next bound to consider their emergency motion to stop the release of Volume 2. Now, on this point, now if we're talking only about Volume 2, the court agrees with the defense. Release of Volume 2, even on a limited basis to hack congresspeople, risks irreversibly and substantially impairing these co-defendants. This court is not willing to make that gamble on a basis of some generalized interest by Congress, at least not without a full briefing and hearing on the subject. Nor has the United States presented any justification to support the suggestion that Volume 2 must be released now, as opposed to after a reasonable hearing that's being expedited, by the way. We're going to do it on Friday. And so for those reasons, the court must enjoin temporarily Garland, the DOJ, officers, agents, employees, and more from releasing Volume 2. Don't release Volume 2. Don't release any drafts or anything until this Friday, the 17th. We're going to have a hearing, and then the judge will make a determination thereafter. So Friday, the judge is going to need some time to think about this. So hopefully she comes back with her order over the weekend. She gives it a lot of thought, and then she can decide what to do on Monday afternoon, after Trump's inaugurated, all right? So a final word on this jurisdiction, says Canon. The 11th Circuit January 9th summary denial of Trump's motion contains no directive that I don't have jurisdiction over this, and we're not persuaded by the government that I don't have jurisdiction either. I've got jurisdiction, and so stop saying that. So in light of this order, the court denies stopping Volume 1 from coming out, but allows the stay to continue in Volume 2, and we've got a hearing coming up on that one on Friday. So we're going to keep our eye on that one. Now, Trump, meanwhile, says, why would deranged Jack Smith be allowed to issue a report on a complete and total witch hunt against me, strictly for political purposes, when he was thrown off the case and ultimately dismissed by the DOJ? Therefore, to put it nicely, he was illegitimately involved in this political persecution, and all of the hundreds of millions of dollars spent by our hapless government were, simply put, wasted. He has already filed thousands of rejected statements and documents against me, which were a joke, and the public just voted for me in a landslide to be their president. And what I really like about this is the subtext here. Therefore, to put it nicely, he was illegitimately involved in political persecution. So if you put it more accurately, you could say he was criminally responsible for an abuse of office. And that's a crime. So illegitimately involved, that sounds malicious prosecution. There's a lot of areas where we could go into where there was obstruction and the creation of a case from an illegitimate prosecutor to the tune of $100 million that should be investigated thoroughly. And to put it nicely, this is a good place to start, but we're hopeful that's just the beginning. So President Trump obviously declaring a bit of victory in that Jack is no longer going to be with the DOJ. He got no convictions. Both of his cases were dismissed. And now we have a little bit of a token victory for Jack in that he'll release the J6 report. Nobody cares about January 6th anymore, and everything in that document is going to be now subject to the criticism that Jack was illegal and he illegally appropriated $100 million. So I don't think it's going to be received that well, actually, at all. And I don't think that it's going to introduce any new materials that we didn't already know. Jack already released his massive addendum when he was trying to race this case to a trial. Nobody cared about it. That was before the election. Trump still won anyways. And so this is the last gasp of a dying attempt to try to siphon off the presidency from the American people. And he's lost. He'll get some of his report released, but it's a token victory. It's something that is not going to have any impact. Jack Smith's entire career has been a failure, and he failed once again. All right, and so that is Jack Smith. Now let's turn our attention to what's happening in Fani land, because she was another Trump prosecutor who's having a hard time. Fani Willis now has to pay a boatload of money over to Judicial Watch. She spent a lot of her time prosecuting President Trump and wrecking Georgia, but now she has some penalties coming her way. You can see this was an order entered by Judge McBurney, and it is against our friends Judicial Watch, or in favor of Judicial Watch, but this was a battle between Fani and Judicial Watch over records. Fani has been trying to cover up all of her nefariousness, in particular her prosecution of the president. We know that she was flying back and forth to D.C. and lots of evidence that they were colluding with the J6 committee and maybe even Kamala Harris. So now Judicial Watch sued them and said, give us this evidence. Now, this order comes from the court. This is an official court document. You can see it is in the Superior Court of Fulton County, the state of Georgia, aka Georgia. Their legal system is having some difficulties, but plaintiff, says the judge, submitted an open records request. This is Judicial Watch. He went after Fani, said, I want this info. Now, that same day, Tom Fitton and Judicial Watch, shout out, they received confirmation that its request had been delivered, right? They get that auto, hey, we got your request, thank you, we'll follow up. The following day, the county open records custodian sent Judicial Watch an email saying, we got the inquiry, and can you please simplify your request? It's too complicated for me, so I can't figure it out. 5 minutes later, literally 5 minutes later, before any simplification had occurred, Plaintiff got a second email from the records custodian, said, after reviewing your request, we don't have the records. Okay, so the judge is saying, like, when the judge writes that, like literally, the judge is writing almost like we talk. Literally 5 minutes later, before Judicial Watch could even respond, they got another email. So the first email from Fani, wow, this is complicated. Can you please simplify this for us? Actually, don't simplify anything. We don't have it. Closed. Record request closed. Amazing. So this response was perplexing, says the judge, and eventually suspicious to Judicial Watch, given that Judicial Watch subsequently uncovered through its own effort at least one document that should have been in her possession and was patently responsive to the request. This judge is pissed. This discovery prompted the current litigation. It was filed in March 2024. Judicial Watch sought an order against Fani to direct Fani to comply with the records request and to provide all responsive records. Now, during this litigation, Fani thrice denied the existence of any responsive records, even though we know that they exist because Judicial Watch has a copy. They're like waving it around. It's right here. Hello. Once in a request for admission and twice via answers to interrogatories, which is when the lawsuit starts, right? Every time, this is what Fani's office said, we have searched and there is nothing. Well, they're going to pay for that. Now, ultimately, Fani defaulted on this lawsuit, and this court entered an order on December 2nd, which we read here, directing Fani. It said, Fani, get off your booty and conduct a diligent search of your records for the responsive materials and to provide any responsive materials that were not legally exempted from disclosure. And so we read that and we're like, oh, we know what Fani's going to do. She's just going to say, we've done a diligent search, we have nothing, and then the stuff that we do have is exempted. So she just matched what the judge told her to do. If she elected to withhold the records, she was ordered by the court to comply with the law and tell us why you're withholding these records. So then her compliance with the order, the judge says, I gave you a direct order, Big Fani. You responded and you said that you complied with this. What did you send back to my courtroom? He's furious. I got an undated, unsigned 2-page memo to Judicial Watch from the Open Records Department. Okay, so Fani just like opened up a Word document. She's like, I don't know, Open Records Department, just type it up. It's attached here to the notice. Now, in this memo, Fani announced that there were still no records responsive to Judicial Watch's request. And these were communications about Jack Smith. We want to know, did you talk to Jack Smith? Did you talk to Kamala Harris? Were you flying back and having a cup of tea with Liz Cheney and Cassidy Hutchinson, clavicle girl, after she suborned perjury from her? There were records, says the judge. We know it. There were, in fact, records. You said multiple times, no records. There were. There were communications. Nothing was responsive, but she said those were exempt from disclosure. They identified these. They say, no, it's a pending investigation. They said attorney-client privilege. They said work product. We're not giving you anything, said Fani. Now, Fani, despite these reservations, did gamely attach to her memo a copy of the letter that she wrote to Chairman of the House Committee, Benny Thompson. She said, well, I did send this letter, which we already knew about, because she was asking him, I think, for materials, right? Does not appear to be covered by any of the exemptions and had already been identified by Judicial Watch as a responsive record that was wrongfully withheld. So she's like, here, I'll give you something. It's the public document that we all already have. But somehow, something had changed, said the judge. Weird. Despite having previously informed Judicial Watch 4 separate times, 4 times, that her team had carefully searched but found no records, now there suddenly were. There were records, but suddenly they were not subject to disclosure under the Open Records Act. So that's weird. So you checked 4 times now, and then suddenly you found something, but oh, now that you found them, you can't disclose them. Now, plaintiff's deposition of the record of custodian. So Judicial Watch sat down this custodian of records and says, oh, we're going to depo you now. It did shed some light to this mystery. The custodian of records indicated and admitted that there was no search for records back in August 2023. Just no, go away is what he said. Do you have anything? No, go away. He further clarified that when Judicial Watch did not go away, but sued them. There was still no organized, comprehensive examination of Big Fani's records. Didn't even try. That would await the court's order. So they had to go get the judge to make that order happen. The judge says, this is ridiculous, okay? The ORA is not hortatory, meaning we don't just blow smoke. It's mandatory. Non-compliance has consequences. One of them can be liability for the requesting party's attorney's fees and their cost of litigations, Fani. And so to recover its relevant and reasonable costs, the plaintiff, here Judicial Watch, must do two things. First, it must show that Fani violated the law. Second, they must demonstrate a lack of substantial justification for the violation, and Judicial Watch has done both. Most basically, writes this judge from Georgia, says by operation of law, Fani acknowledged violating the law when she defaulted on the case. She didn't even respond and lost by default. But actual evidence proves the same. So she admitted, right, like technically, when she defaulted, you lose. It's over. Thanks. You should have responded. You didn't. We gave you an opportunity multiple times. You didn't. You lose. But the actual evidence also supports that. So it's not just like a technical thing. She's also a liar. Per her own record custodian's own admission, Fani's office flatly ignored Judicial Watch's ORA request. She's mandated by law to do it. She didn't do it. Ignored it. She conducted no search and simply and falsely lied, informed the county's open records custodian that no responsive records existed. Liar to her own team, liar to Judicial Watch. We know that's incorrect. Once pressed by a court order, finally, Fani then managed to identify a responsive record, but then categorized them as exempt. Oh, now you can't have them. We do have them, but you can't have them. Even if the records prove to be just that, exempt from disclosure for sound reasons, this late revelation is a violation of the law. And for none of this, is there any justification, substantial or otherwise. No one searched until you had to be sued because you were trying to hide the truth. And even after litigation began, Fani's records custodian initially merely asked certain employees, do you think you have anything? There was no rigorous review of emails or case files at all. You think you have any of these documents? No. Who? Jack Smith? No. We don't have anything. So given this, judge is not happy. The court finds that relevant and reasonable attorney's fees are properly awardable to Tom Fitton and Judicial Watch. The evidence from the court's December hearing on attorney's fees shows that Judicial Watch's counsel's billing rate is reasonable, and the items for the bill are mostly relevant to the violation. And from the record made at the hearing, this court finds that Judicial Watch has $19,360 in attorney's fees for trying to get Fani to do her job. Litigation expenses, $2,200. And so Big Fani Willis owes Judicial Watch $21,578. And we know Fani likes to keep cash around. She takes it out from her deposits or her debit card transactions. And she stores it at her home in her mattress. And don't ask questions about that or you might be racist. So she probably has that. And maybe she can split it with Nathan Wade. Defendant is thus liable for $21,500, and that amount shall be paid within 2 weeks. And so that is coming due, Fani. Coming due. The clock is ticking. Hopefully that transaction has occurred. We'll, of course, see about that. But Fani is also fighting for her survival. Going to the Supreme Court of Georgia, Fani Willis scrambling to stay on the Trump prosecution. Our friend Phil Holloway got his hands on the petition that Big Fani is filing up to the Supreme Court of Georgia. They got it right on that one. And now asking her and the Supreme Court to put her back on the case. And what Phil says, he's a lawyer from Georgia. He says the Supreme Court of Georgia doesn't have to take her petition at all. Here's what she wrote as she's begging the Supreme Court to save her. She says, comes now, we're applying for a writ of certiorari. Here's the key question. Did the Court of Appeals that threw Fani off the case along with Nathan Wade, did it divest her of her constitutional authority to investigate, prosecute, and pursue crimes solely based on the appearance of impropriety, or does it have to be an actual conflict of interest? Okay, so what is the standard? If it's just an appearance, Fani says, I can stay. I only should be booted off if it's an actual conflict. She says the Court of Appeals got it wrong. She says, even if we argue that an actual conflict of interest is not required, did the Court of Appeals err? She says, yeah, of course they did. The majority's opinion below overreached the Court of Appeals authority in all directions. She said they don't have any authority to announce a new rule, and this new rule is this appearance of impropriety rule, and I didn't know about that. And the majority also disregarded decades of precedent, citing there's no authority that would allow us to disregard the precedent and to just boot me off the case. She said the majority opinion didn't dispute what Judge McAfee said. McAfee said that no actual conflict exists or that Trump's people have not been prejudiced in any way. And so Fani is saying, we say that the majority below erred. They reversed McAfee based solely on appearances. In other words, McAfee didn't find that there was a big enough problem. So why is the Court of Appeals finding that there's a bigger problem? At the very least, if the standards of disqualification of prosecutors are about to change, this court, not the Court of Appeals, should announce those charges. So Fani's like, I got blindsided. I had no idea this was wrong. Should I not have done that? Was that a bad thing to do? Fani, the state respectfully indicting my special counsel. Well, now I know. And so the rule should be an actual conflict, which she ultimately clearly had an actual conflict as well. Fani said, this prosecution comes from 2020, writing, criminal charges resulted from 3 years of investigation, blah, blah, blah. She and her special prosecutor, Nathan Wade, who kept all of his files in his head, who she was texting and calling dozens of times a day, having sleepover parties. Everybody around them knew they were indicting each other. She says they put a lot of effort into prosecuting Trump. Great. Now, however, even if it were not true, the Court of Appeals would still imbue this case with the gravity necessary to grant this cert. So she was, please take my case. The opinion below managed to overreach. No Georgia court has ever identified a standard for disqualification for prosecutors. And so I had no idea that the mere appearance of impropriety would get me booted, and no Georgia court has ever reversed a trial court's order that kept me on the case. Says, I can't believe they did this. The majority did all three things down below. The opinion ignored precedent, created new mechanical standards for disqualification. It's going to be very confusing for us. We don't know. I mean, can we sleep with our employees or not? I don't know. Can we take 700 grand from taxpayers and commingle our funds and go on cruises and various trips and have 2-hour lunch meetings working on case briefs or whatever they were doing? I don't know. Fani couldn't figure out that was maybe improper, and maybe an appearance of impropriety would be wrong. So matters of disqualification should be reserved to the trial judge. So McAfee is the person who said Fani can stay on the case as long as her boyfriend hit the road. And he did. He's like, I'm out of here. He got his 700 G's, got a divorce from his wife. Kids hate him, but he's got a nice new car and some nice new clothes on him. And he's doing tons of interviews. He's having a free-for-all. In fact, I still think he's indicting Fani. I think they're closer than ever is what she said. So he's got it all. Now, while actually the Court of Appeals agreed and said this is the rare case where disqualification is necessary, says Phil Holloway, saying the Central Georgia case concerning the disqualification she's going through case law, which we'll fast forward through, and says even rules, says Fani, have eliminated the appearance of impropriety. So she says the standard should be much higher. Before I get thrown off, it should be an actual conflict of interest. The trial court did ultimately employ the appearance of impropriety standard. It did not abuse its discretion, and it did not disqualify her because there was no actual conflict. So I shouldn't be disqualified based on McAfee's ruling. While the trial court referred to the application of the appearance of impropriety standard, Georgia courts have not actually applied that. They've just mentioned it. And so McAfee didn't even do that here. Says our legacy in these other cases is unquestionable, citing a bunch of case law and saying that the trial court's order, here we go. After bringing a motion accusing Fani of having acquired a personal financial stake in their relationship or in this case with Nathan Wade, they were provided an opportunity to subpoena and introduce a ton of evidence. The trial court found that an appearance of impropriety existed and would persist if this case were allowed to continue unchanged. But then booted Nathan Wade off. And she says that they failed to show that there was any material financial benefit, failed to show that she had a personal stake in the conviction or any of those things. And so she just continues on. And Willis continues on. Phil Holloway copying and pasting a large portion of the filing here. Looks like it's a lot of the same. Says the state, as it did in the trial court, saying you cannot disqualify a prosecutor based on the appearance of impropriety. There has to be an actual conflict. This is a first where any Georgia court has actually applied this. It holds an elected Fani, a constitutional officer, to an unexplained heightened standard without accounting for the unique reasons counseling against disqualification. An obvious interest in due process, meaning you can't just boot her off so quickly. At the very least, if an appearance of impropriety, absence an actual conflict, is sufficient to boot her, you should clarify how and why. So I had no idea what I was doing was bad. And now I've been busted. So don't do this. In conclusion, she says, proceeding from the investigation through the special counsel purpose grand jury, through all of this, we've done our job. Now, then you've decided that the people trying to remove her didn't do their job. They failed to carry their burden. McAfee found that there was an appearance of impropriety and that we could fix it. We could just fix it. We get rid of Wade. We're good. And then it went up to the Court of Appeals and they reversed. It's a new standard out of nowhere. Doesn't even explain how it works or how it gets implemented. And it's going to confuse everybody. And so for those reasons, we ask that this court accept our petition into Georgia Supreme Court, reverse the Court of Appeals, which threw Fani off the case, and grant any other relief that is deemed proper. Submitted here by our friend Phil Holloway, showing us exactly what Fani's trying to do, to take this to the Supreme Court to see if she can get back on the case and salvage what's left of the Trump prosecution. But she was also out today, and she got asked a question about crime and the jails and how she's doing such a terrible job, and she got pretty animated here. Here's what Fani sounds like out there today.
We need more everything to be able to turn these cases faster, and we need better jail space at Fulton County. So, glad you asked that question. I want citizens to be aware. Madam DA?
Our mayor is so polite. He's such a Southern gentleman, right? Fulton County leadership, we need the Fulton County Commission to do their job. The reality is the sheriff cannot do his job, nor the district attorney hers, if it is not financed properly. We have known for years, and the sheriff has been begging for years. The jail is falling apart. The prisoners are using pieces of the jail to make shanks to hurt other prisoners. We know that. Atlanta has done their part. They gave us a facility. They've helped us in the way that they can. This is not on the mayor's shoulders. It's not on Atlanta Police Department's shoulders. It sits on Commissioner Rob Pitt's shoulders. And we ought to demand that they have humane conditions. We ought to demand that the DA's office is financed in a way where we can properly prosecute crimes. And citizens ought to call and say, we don't want people to live in these inhumane conditions. And he gave it to you lightly. I've been a district attorney and a defense attorney. The jail is disgusting.
That's right. It is. That's your jail, right? And you're prosecuting people and throwing them in there. People are dropping dead. Now she's going to pass the buck, blame everybody else. They're all going to blame her, and around we go. But they need more money is the thing. Maybe if they hadn't spent millions of dollars prosecuting Trump and the other co-defendants there in a stupid RICO case, or spending tons of money on a YSL failed prosecution with corrupt prosecutors who are terrible at their jobs, maybe they would be able to spend up their budget a little bit more competently without people dying and being eaten alive by bugs in their jails.
You go in there, people were sleeping in pods. The conditions should not be that way. You have one man manning 50 and 60 inmates. That cannot happen and people be safe. And so at some point, we have to put blame where blame lies.
On you.
And where it lies is with Chairman Rob Pitts and those 6 commissioners that sit with him. And they have a duty that in 2 weeks, they need to issue a budget for our sheriff and for this district attorney's office that does the job.
Or what?
You want to take another question after that? You want? At some point, Shad, it's time to.
I guess that's a nice day of questioning there in Georgia. When Fani Willis comes and scolds you and lectures you in your face, then I guess everybody's really, wow, she came and screamed about money. She told you. Okay. So we got another hearing coming back on this Friday. We're going to be covering it. The 17th, we'll see what Judge Canon hints at doing as it relates to the classified documents report. We're going to be here covering it. Thanks for subscribing and joining as we do. All right. And so, my friends, we got one final update on the day, and then we are going to hear from you. And this is going to be an interesting one. All right. Michael Cohen having a tough time in the aftermath of Trump's victory. He was once part of the Trump team, then was commandeered, forced to lie, joined the Democrats, and became a convicted perjurer and disbarred attorney. Now he was somebody who was used recently to prosecute and convict Trump in the New York Judge Merchan case, and was very useful to Tish James in the business, the contract, the amount of money. What was it? The Tish James case, the improper financing of loans case. There we go. Okay, so he was very useful in the Tish James case and the Judge Merchan case, and now he's freaked out because he's going to be prosecuted theoretically for all of that criminality. Here is Michael Cohen
regarding the
begging for a pardon.
Yeah, I put in the application for a presidential pardon because I believe that Joe Biden has the same responsibility to me that he had to his own son. And I would expect that the same exact pardon that he gave his son has to go to me and to anybody else that's on that enemies list, whether they want it or not. Because I assure you, solitary confinement where I did 51 days sucks.
Michael Cohen, I believe wholeheartedly that the solitary confinement was just a terrible experience for you. And I think your point about the enemies, the proverbial enemies list, right, is a good one. I wonder, have you heard anything back from the administration? It is my understanding that two things. The administration, one, is not going to give a pardon to anybody that doesn't want one. So folks who have prominently gone out and said, I do not want a pardon, the president is not going to issue a pardon to people that don't want one. But two,
they'll change their mind when they're sitting behind closed doors. That I can assure you, they're going to kick themselves in the backside for that one.
I think hindsight will always be 20/20. I guess my question is, have you heard from the Biden administration? And I am struck by your comparing yourself and Hunter Biden. And I wonder if, well, I'm going to just tell you, Michael, because we're on national TV, we have a conversation. I don't necessarily think that's your best way to go get a pardon. I mean, Hunter Biden is the president's last surviving son. But your other point, why I do think is a strong one.
I'm somebody's son also, by the way.
Agreed. You are somebody's son. But, I mean, to be very clear, you're not the president's son.
No, he's not the president's son. So he's basically begging for that on MSNBC. And he was highly involved in reversing himself to be useful for the Democrats to go after Trump in the Merchan case, in the Tish case, in Congress, on all these shows. He has a podcast. He goes on TikTok and like eats hot dogs or whatever for super chats or whatever he's doing over there. So Michael Cohen now very nervous, and he's not alone. A lot of people are trying to figure out who they are and what they're all about these days. And so you can see this is Norm Eisen, another person who was instrumental in creating a conspiracy to prosecute Trump. I think he was responsible for a lot of the lawfare that was happening behind the scenes, the civil litigation, the ballot removal stuff, very, very embedded behind the scenes, more not actually filing stuff in court, but a little bit less of a prominent Mark Elias kind of a guy. Still a major player in the Democratic side. He's joined now by Jennifer Rubin, who was a former Washington Post columnist, and they're going to be starting a podcast together, and they're going to be waging the fight to save American democracy against the new incoming Trump. And here is just a little bit of what you can expect from these two.
Do politics, we're going to do law, but we know that any successful pro-democracy movement also has to be very vocal about culture. We'll have a humor column. We'll even have a cooking column, but we're going to sprinkle in a little bit of pro-democracy flavor.
Wow, that's going to be incredible. And so here's a little bit more on that. Jennifer Rubin, who is one of the most incompetent political analysts you've ever heard of. I don't know why she ever had a job for as long as she did, but here was her announcement. Listen to this.
Hi, I'm Jen Rubin.
And I'm Norm Eisen.
I am here to announce I am leaving the Washington Post in order to co-found with Norm an exciting new online platform, The Contrarian.
Whoa!
We are going to bring you written material, podcasts, interviews, social media, all in defense of democracy. Our intent is to combat the authoritarian force that we all face. To help us, we have an exciting array of contributors from all walks of life, all ages, all backgrounds to help us in this venture.
We're going to do politics. We're going to do law, but we know that any successful
Okay, so we'll play this out again.
movement also has to be very vocal about culture. We'll have a humor column. We'll even have a cooking column, but we're going to sprinkle in a little bit of pro-democracy flavor.
And we're going to have pets. We're very pro-pets. So please, join us in this journey. We cannot do this without you. We want your contributions, your input, your ideas.
Thank you for joining The Contrarian.
Wow. Okay, so, all right, Tucker Carlson, Joe Rogan, you guys are in big trouble, man. Rubin and Norm are coming for you. All right, keep your eyes about you. Keep your wits about you, my friends. They're going to talk about their pets, their cooking, and American democracy. That's going to be their answer. So I can't wait to see them out there. It's going to be fun. Maybe they'll come on the show. All right, so that's fun. Here is another mental person who's having a difficult time with all of this, who's trying to reinvent himself and figure out what's going on with him. I forgot to mention the best part of this. So in response to this, Stephen Chung, who is Trump's spokesman, came out and wrote this. Former White House exec, he comments for Trump. He says, these out-of-touch cucks are so beyond their depth. One of their selling points is to bring you social media. This is the old media thinking they can survive in this new environment. They can't. They're dinosaurs on the brink of extinction. Damn, Stephen, bringing the ruckus today. I like it. They are, and we're looking forward to seeing how they do. So we'll check in on the Contrarian to see how they're doing. Contrarian of what? All they do is follow the herd like sheep. Trust the science, global warming, insurrection. They're the most bland followers you've ever seen. They expect everybody to act like sheep and good little communists like them. So we'll see how they do. So here's this insane person who had another difficult time reconciling the fact that he's been wrong about everything and he's not intelligent at all, even though people have pretended he was for a long time. He's totally lost his mind. Elon says he's got a mental illness, I think, and he was having a hard time reconciling the fact that Trump got shot in the head. Here's what Harris sounded like.
There's one thing I am skeptical about.
Come on.
I haven't said anything about this. I'll give it to you. This just could be based on a faulty intuition about ballistics, but I'm surprised that a rifle round making any degree of contact with an ear wouldn't do more damage. I think a shattered piece of shrapnel from a teleprompter is far more likely to have done that to his ear than a rifle round.
We've already looked at the images of the teleprompters. There were no blown up teleprompters.
So silly.
Have you seen what rifle rounds do to human bodies?
I know, but like, if it just hit it by the slightest possible degree, it just, it makes much more sense. The guy behind
Well, no, but I do. No, there's no question there were rifle rounds flying. Someone was killed. I'm not debating that at all. But if in fact a teleprompter was hit by the rifle round and we know there was shattered glass, that makes more sense to me.
Okay, pretty sure that we know that there was no teleprompter or rifle round that exploded the glass. And I wanted to see if there was a photograph from Brick Suit right here. Thank you, Brick Suit. Shout out to Brick Suit in the house. Clutch when you need them. Says, if only someone in the front row had taken a picture of the teleprompters after the event that could debunk the entire fragment of teleprompter theory. I wonder if anybody has one of those, like this one that Brick Suit has, a photo like this one that I took. Sam, can somebody text that to Sam, please? Right there. There it is. Thank you, Bricksuit, for debunking Sam, who's not that bright, obviously. Now, somebody else who's having a hard time with competency is Christopher Wray. You probably saw this clip. This is a scary one, okay? Those other people are psycho and demented. This guy's just, well, he's both, but he's got a lot more responsibilities, okay? Those other, Michael Cohen's, if his podcast fails or TikTok or whatever, it's not that big of a deal. But if the Chinese are embedded in our infrastructure and they blow up the country, that is a big problem. Here's Chris Wray.
China's cyber program is by far and away the world's largest, bigger than that of every major nation combined, and has stolen more of Americans' personal and corporate data than that of every nation, big or small, combined. But even beyond the cyber theft, there's another part of the Chinese cyber threat that I think has not gotten the attention publicly that it, I think, desperately deserves, and that is Chinese government's pre-positioning on American civilian critical infrastructure to lie in wait on those networks, to be in a position to wreak havoc and can inflict real-world harm at a time and place of their choosing.
The Chinese have already insinuated malware into critical American infrastructure.
That's correct.
Like what?
Things like water treatment plants. We're talking about transportation systems. We're talking about targeting of our energy sector, the electric grid, natural gas pipelines. And recently, we've seen targeting of our telecommunications system.
Great. So basically everything. And the FBI under Christopher Wray has done very little to mitigate that as far as we can tell. Well, we'll see if that is something that pops up. Hopefully it does not. Here was another exchange with Jake Tapper. We also saw this clip from Joe Biden. Biden said something to the effect that he could have beaten Trump and Kamala could have beaten Trump. Here was that exchange that Jake Tapper is commenting on, saying, is this dude gone?
President Biden was asked by reporters at the White House Friday if he regretted his initial decision to run for re-election. And, well, let's just roll the tape.
Roll it, Jake.
I think I would have beaten Trump, could have beaten Trump, and I think that Kamala could have beaten Trump, would have beaten Trump. Nope. And when the party was worried about whether or not I was going to be able to move, I thought, even though I thought I could win again, I thought it was better to unify the party, but I didn't want to be one who caused a party that wasn't unified to lose an election. And that's why I stepped aside, but I was confident she could win.
Okay, first of all, I think Kamala would have beaten Trump. She ran against him and she lost. So that's just nonsensical.
Well, I think he was trying to give her kudos for running a strong campaign. I think he was.
I think he was trying to backtrack after he's been spending the last couple of months, like basically dissing her.
No, I don't think that's fair.
He said I could have won. I could have won.
There is not a politician in the world who's going to tell you that they couldn't have won, wouldn't have won had they stayed in the race. I mean, that is how they are built. It's all ego. And so I think what he was trying to do there was acknowledge that she ran a strong race, that he was proud of her. That's how he articulated it.
No. He could have beaten Trump is what he said. And he got thrown out on his booty because they thought that only Kamala or somebody else could beat Trump. And he's making his point. Now, he also is demented because Kamala definitely didn't beat Trump. It wasn't even close, not even remotely close. So Joe Biden's having a tough time. Jake Tapper calls it nonsensical, which is good. He's coming around to the point that Joe Biden is long gone. Here was another exchange from Joe out today talking about, well, who knows what. Here's Joe.
Look, let's get something in mind about the
Tell
border.
us.
When I became president, the numbers came way down.
Really?
Number two, we had a circumstance where I pushed very hard for a bipartisan agreement to put more people on the border, more Secret Service agents. And guess what? He's on the phone saying, don't do it, make me look bad. Look.
Oh, maybe that's why Trump got shot in the head and almost got taken out at the golf course. It's because all the Secret Service people were at the border. What are they doing down there? They're not supposed to be down there. That's supposed to be Border Patrol. Joe, all your agencies are crisscrossed, man. You got to send the right people to the right locations. Secret Service don't know what they're doing at the border. Customs and Border Patrol, they're not good at protecting the president because they just let everybody in. Oh, are you an assassin who's coming to kill the president? Yeah, come on in. Are you seeking asylum? Okay. If you're an assassin, you can come in as long as you're seeking asylum. We're going to write down this number, promise to appear. But come on in, have a seat, enjoy the show. Good angles up there on the roof. So that's Joe. All right, so we also have now Fetterman, who is basically coming aboard the Trump train. Okay, Pennsylvania went red. Now Mar-a-Lago. Now this conversation with Fetterman, apparently, saying that he had a conversation with Trump. He said it was totally fascinating. Trump said it was totally fascinating. He's a fascinating man, and his wife is lovely. I could not be more impressed, said Trump after meeting with Fetterman. He's a common sense person. He's not liberal or conservative, which is beautiful. And that's according to Trump. So we've got a bunch of confirmations coming up, and we're going to be here. We're going to keep our eye on Michael Cohen and these other lunatics who are going to be begging for a pardon in these final days of Biden's last week. He'll be gone in 7 days. We'll be celebrating and ringing in the new 47th president at our watch party, inauguration watch party. We hope you join us. Grab your tickets at watcherlodge.com. Links in the description below. All right. And so, my friends, we covered 3 good segments today. If you're just joining us, quick recap. We talked about Jack Smith and how he got fired, or he's gone from the DOJ. Trump is celebrating. They sent him off in a pathetic little footnote on the bottom of page 11 because that's how good Jack Smith is. That's all anybody cares about him, is they just shove him down here on the footnote. So long, Jack. See you later. There it is. Bye, Jack. You're gone. We also talked about Fani Willis and how she owes Judicial Watch almost 22 G's, baby. We'll see if she gets that bill paid and if she goes under her big mattress and takes that stack of cash there and sends that over to Judicial Watch because they have earned it. We also saw Fani has taken her case up to the Supreme Court in Georgia and wants to get back on the Trump prosecution. Probably not going to happen, but we'll keep our eye on that one. And then we talked about Michael Cohen, Norm, and Jennifer. She's not going to be writing at the Washington Post anymore. We talked about the others like Ray, Harris, and more. But now, my friends, it's time to hear from you and see what you have to say about all of this and more. Thank you for sending in these amazing donos and supporting our work. And another reminder, we do have our inauguration watch party. It's live in person 1 week from today. 7 days, the clock is ticking. Many of you are coming, and I can't wait to meet you. It's going to be a ton of fun. We've got a friend who is coming to be our special guest. We have balloons coming. We've got photo sections, and we have a huge video wall where we're going to watch the inauguration together, almost like a movie theater, and it's going to be a ton of fun. We have a brunch coming. Tickets are $100. Grab your tickets. watcherlodge.com. We'd love to see you there and meet you. My fam's coming. It's going to be fun. So check it out, watcherlodge.com, and come and join us for the historic day. It's the Mar-a-Lago of the Southwest, and we'd love to spend the day with you. So come check it out. Come join us. watcherlodge.com. All right, and so we got some great donos here, my friends. Thank you for sending these in. And we had the hortatory word got looked up, which is fun. We got some Newsom memes. We got a Monday cat in the house. It's Monday, cat. Does it feel like that today? I feel pretty good. I feel like we popped up today. We're ready to go. And we got confirmation hearings all day tomorrow. So another housekeeping note. Confirmation hearings all day tomorrow. Hegseth and more. We're going to be streaming live early in the morning. So come and join us. We'd love to see you there. All right, what's up? KTJ is in the house. Whoa, KTJ says, I'm a grandfather again. Zoe Grace, welcome aboard the planet, Zoe Grace, born 1242 Central Time, 7 pounds, 11 ounces, 19 inches long. Almost an 8-pounder there, KTJ. Congrats to you, to your family, to your father, to your son or daughter. I hope mom and dad are doing good, mom especially, and baby is here healthy. Very fun, KTJ. We got a new baby, a real one, in the house. We got this one from Deranged Poke User. Says, 1 more minute, might want to press the like button before Robert gets all the attention. Thank you for that, Deranged Poke User. Before the show started, 1 minute before the show. Thank you for that, Deranged. And don't forget to hit that like button, my friends. Hey, January 20th posted this. January 20th. Amen to that. Doesn't that feel good? Doesn't that date have a nice feel to it? It's going to be good. 1 week, and then we're done with this crap 4 years from this loser. Hey, former LEO says, this one's worth a redo. Smokey Bear is probably very unhappy with Gavin. I forgot about Smokey. He cannot be happy. Climate change caused all the forest fires. Smokey Bear saying, yeah, sure it did. Just come back here a little bit closer. I'm going to solve this fire problem right here. Smokey the Bear's had enough. Although Smokey, he doesn't really need a shovel because he's a giant grizzly. But even you can prevent forest fires unless your name's Gavin Newsom. Then you get a lot of it. Hey, what's up, Liquid Rock Aquatics? Liquid Rock Aquatics is sharing puppy snuggles on the show. All right, here it is, puppy snuggles on the show, Liquid Rock. Man, who doesn't love a good puppy? And that's what looks like a puppy bum in the house from Liquid Rock Aquatics. Man, congrats on the new pup. That's super fun. Ravicus. Hey, Jack, don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you, which is your butt, because it's kind of like a split. Thank you, Ravicus. Hey, it's the Munkets is here. Gifting 5 membos in the house. We got Linda G, welcome. Marco Kungla is here. Marlene joining us. Ron Hastings in the house. And Crimson Decade, gifted membos, courtesy of our friend Tony Hay Munkets. Hey, it's the Munkets. We got Sharpening Man in Texas, and Jeffrey Adams are here. Jeffrey Adams says, Rob, what would happen if Justice Roberts refuses to administer the oath of office to Trump during the inauguration because he is a convicted felon? Well, that would be we'd have a problem, right? I mean, we'd have a problem. So I don't think that that's going to happen, but Justice Roberts, he'd have to have some basis to do that, right? So what would he point to in the Constitution or anywhere that said that Trump would be prohibited from becoming the president? Like what authority would he base that on? Would it be the 14th Amendment, the insurrection clause? There's no real convicted felon portion of the Constitution that he could rely on. So I don't think it's likely to happen. If he doesn't do it, I think you've got an issue. Maybe Congress impeaches him. You get a new, I don't know how that would work. Can somebody else administer the oath? Does it have to be him? Can another justice administer it? I'm not expecting that to happen, but it's an interesting hypothetical that would be fun to game out. Sharpening Man in Texas says, I've been listening, Rob, just too busy. Stay sharp. You too, Sharpening Man in Texas. Thanks for listening. Thanks for the dono, my man. We'll see you when you're less busy. Kentucky Marine says, are we going to see these lawfarers going to jail this time? Well, if they broke the law, then they should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. I think they had it's like first degree murder is all premeditated. They had nefarious intent and they should be prosecuted accordingly. No one's above the law. They told us this for 4 years. So now if there's evidence that they abused their office or were malicious prosecutors or suborned perjury or deleted or obstructed evidence or any of those things, well, they should be prosecuted. Hey, what's going on? Tony Hay Munkets bringing in 5 membos. Tony Hay Munkets, you rock. 5 membos. Hey, what's up? GNR Lawn Service in the house. We got HD Warrior. Eric Bates is joining us. Buddy 305 Love in the house, along with Bob Jones, brought in courtesy of Tony Hay Munkets. Hey, it's the Munkets. 5 more, Tony? You're amazing. Donna Newland is here. AB, what's up, Christo Brians? Chief Vince, and Dark Insider in the house, courtesy of Tony Hay. And hey, new membos, grab the stream from this morning. It was a fun one. We talked a little bit about Muriel Bowser. We talked about the fires. We talked about other things. It was a good stream this morning. Check it out. Waldo says Keith Bradbury is coming in. Thank you, Waldo, and welcome, Keith. Tony Hay Munkets with 5 more Tony Hay. John C., Jose G. We got Dave Macy, Greg Silverado, and Bravo 6 in the house. Brought in courtesy of Tony Hay Munkets. Hey, it's the Munkets. Leonard says, if there was anything in the stuff Smith wants to release, the Dems would have already exploited it. Yeah, and I think that they tried to do that with that giant dossier that Jack Smith released that we didn't even pay much attention to because there was nothing new in there. I mean, even the people in the liberal media, that was before the election, and they couldn't find anything that was even interesting. So is that what's going to be in the report? So what? He's going to be the president for the next 4 years. So it doesn't matter what's in there. I don't think there's going to be anything even consequential in there, but it still is a matter of principle. He's not a real boy. He's an illegitimate prosecutor. He should have no authority to steal $100 million, write a report, run away from the DOJ, and then dump it on the American people. Ravicus says, so is there a plan for all the displaced people? Where are the illegal immigrants going to go now? Answer, to a neighborhood near you, along with all the displaced Democrat voters. And so be vigilant, my friends, from Ravicus. Yeah, it depends on who you're talking about. I mean, the displaced Californians, I don't know where they're going to go. I think probably Arizona and a lot of other states. We just hope they don't bring their politics with them. But yeah, I mean, I think people are going to be tired of living in an incompetently run state. And this might be a nice impetus to inspire some movement there and maybe some reform, but who knows? Where are the illegal immigrants going to go? Well, if the illegal immigrants go back to Mexico, then we'll have some additional capacity here. I think that's the plan. Hortatory, tending or aiming to exhort. The central bank relied on hortatory messages. Hortatory. It's not like a T. Hortatory. And voluntary compliance. It's from the Latin hortatorius, from exhorting. Interesting. Hey, what's up? Rick D says, what's the odds on Polymarket that she doesn't pay it? From Fani? Is that on Polymarket? Is there there's odds on that? On Polymarket. Get out of here. You can bet on Fani Willis futures? That sounds fun. Spuds says Fanny's got a lot of trips to Publix coming. It's true, because she is like, hey, Fanny, do you have any receipts for the thousands of dollars that you were taking out of your bank account and paying back Nathan Wade on? No, I paid in cash. Oh, do you have any ATM withdrawals? No, I took it out when I got cash back at the debit card. She goes to buy her Grey Goose vodka. Would you like cash back with that? She says, yeah, I need $40 because I got to pay back my lover. The guy behind the cashier's like, I don't care. Here's your $40. Get out of my line. David D. What's up, David DeHart says, the Pizzagate guy who shot into the computer at Comet Ping Pong Pizza in D.C. was killed by a police and gun battle here in North Carolina. Wow. Was he not in jail or something? Interesting. Yeah, David DeHart, thank you for that one. I had not seen that story. Well, shootouts are not good. Knox is here, says, happy 1 week and counting all. I am getting positively giddy with anticipation. I know it's going to be just like a whole, talk about changing a chapter. I mean, I was listening to Karine today. I was listening to Jake Sullivan today and all these people. It's like, oh my gosh, they're going to be gone forever. And what's so interesting about this is there's nobody from this administration who you'd like to even see back. Even the Democrats, like who's going to come back and be the heir apparent? No one. Is it going to be Booty? No. Kamala? No. Biden? No. Like even with the Obamas, there was like, okay, well, Obama's in the wings and maybe there's some other people who can come out of that administration, but then he gave us Biden. And so he basically wrecked all that. So they're in dire straits, which is good for America. Tony Hay Munkett says more good things to come. But the best thing Trump ever did was save us from Hillary Clinton. Can you imagine? I literally cried tears of joy in 2016. That 16 was wild, man. I was political, but I was also running my law firm at the time. So I was, not doing anything we're doing now. Woke up, actually, that night, like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. One old guy's opinions says the dolted, half-assed DA is in the rear hole with the money she laundered with her man toy, Nathan, hide the wiener. She needs to be fired or impeached. One old guy's opinions, man. Gosh, amazing. Knox says, okay, speaking of certain people, rats. Okay, so let's talk about this. I just got this. In accord with the Code of Criminal Procedure and in an abundance of caution, the Harris County DA's office discloses the following. So Knox is a defense attorney in Harris County, says the HCDAO was notified by the Houston Police Department that rodents have been observed in the narcotics evidence room. Rodents first observed in October 2024 and remain present. Narcotics items have been compromised. So literally speaking of rats in the evidence locker. So, I mean, that's kind of good for the criminal cases. The chain of custody has now been destroyed by rodents. And is this how Ninja Turtles started? Like, is that where Splinter came from? I feel like this is a Ninja Turtles starting point. It could be pretty cool, Knox. Things will be different there in Harris County. One old guy says they all are pooping in their pantalones right now. I think that's probably true. Yeah. Knox says, so rats have been eating the drugs in Houston, not the inmates. Yeah, it's going to be great. They're probably very animated if they're eating all the narcotics. I don't even know what's going on over there. All right, so thank you, Knox. Jester Bob. Rob, they're coming after you, the contrarian. It almost sounds like a disease. Hey, buddy, why haven't you been at work? Oh, well, I met this person and they gave me the contrarian. You listen to the Norm Eisen podcast? Yeah, you'll catch a bad case of contrarian for sure. You really can't get rid of it. It kind of takes over your whole psyche. Hey, John Allen. What's up, John Allen? Good to see you, John. Thanks for the very nice dono. It's nice to see you. And he says, hi, Rob. First time catching a live stream since the beginning of the holidays. Just been so busy. Clients and family, just respect how important your streams are. So disrespectful. I know, right? I wanted to wish you happy holidays, even though I'm late. Happy holidays to you, John. I know we're in the second week. I think it's still okay. It says, I hope it was good for you and your family. Here's a little something for a late Christmas gift. Thank you, John Allen. And shout out to all the wonderful mods who are always helping. We love our mods. We have the best mods on the whole internet. Thank you, John. Merry Christmas. Happy belated holidays to you. Happy New Year. And we're glad you stopped by. Hopefully your family's doing well. Hopefully you're doing well. And it's good to be busy. Busyness is a gift. One old guy says, the contrarian sounds like watching paint dry. Should be called the contrarian. The contrarian. Yeah, that's not bad. You should tell that to Stephen Chung. He might like that one. One old guy's opinion says, Ray is adult, listing all his mess ups to secure the U.S. infrastructure finance. He's a poop bag. Yeah. Former says, does Michael Cohen with the presidential pardon believes that it is also a pardon for crimes being prosecuted for state violations? I believe that this is still an unanswered question. He just is concerned about Trump and the DOJ, would be my take. Less worried about the state level prosecutions, but yeah, I mean, a federal pardon would still leave him exposed to that possibility, even if it is unlikely. One old guy's opinion says Forrest Fetterman has more sense than the rest of the Democrats. And Will Crump says, do you really think Roberts and Coney Barrett will side with Trump and overturn Merchan, or will they let this travesty stand? I actually do think that they'll reverse it, because I think they have to, honestly. Like their prior decision in Trump has no teeth if there is no functional immunity. So I don't think they have a choice. I think that why we saw Amy Coney Barrett not want to act on it is because there's a long history of her not liking interlocutory appeals and wanting things to go through a more formal process. In other words, she doesn't like stuff knocking on the Supreme Court's door as a matter of policy. So I do like if that wasn't the hinge, I think that there might be less likelihood there. But I think that when it goes through the proper channels, then she'll side appropriately, just like she did in the immunity case. I mean, it was 6-3 before. So why this went 5-4? I just think it was about process. Thank you, Will. Good question. This old guy says, Willis, Cohen, Smith, Ray, all apparently just beginning to realize Trump won and their lives just got a lot less interesting. Yeah, they were the hunters. Now they become the hunted, and they don't like that one bit. Hey, Sharpie Guys here says Ray is setting up the false flag that these corrupt SOBs want to pull off. Prayers up, everybody. I know Christopher Ray's like, I'm leaving the FBI. Thank you for letting me use the airplane for 10 years, 8 years, whatever it was. But just so you know, on the way out, toilet's full. Good luck with that. See you later. Will Crump says Zoe is Zoe, not Zoe like go. It's Zoe. From Will Crump. Boopsy says Smokey the Bear says only you can prevent forest fires because he knows the authorities are incompetent. Don't rely on Gavin Newsom, Karen Bass, or the LAFD. Only you. Like get a hose and put a sprinkler on your roof like right now. Davey says, watching and commenting from Coopersburg, Pennsylvania, USA to help your YouTube algorithm and enjoying your content. Thank you, Davey. Yeah, thanks for jumping in the chat. Coopersburg, Pennsylvania. Man, shout out to our friends in Pennsylvania. We love you guys. One old guy's opinion says Roberts would because of the concern for his legacy, but in the end, he's a dweeb. From one old guy. Acid Burn, what's up, Acid Burn? Says freedom at last. Rebuild America great again. Raga, rebuild America great again. There's a lot of rebuilding to do. Hey, here's one from Glocky. Says breaking news courtesy of Breitbart. Pete Hegseth is going to have his confirmation hearings tomorrow morning. We'll be streaming it live. Thank you for joining us and subscribing and inviting everyone you've ever known or met or loved or talked to in your whole life. Dashing Democrats. Hopes of scandal. We see that the FBI file came back and apparently it's unremarkable. Mwah. Sorry for them. Hey, it's the Munkets is here. Bringing in 5 new members. Thank you, Tony. Hey, look at this. Tons of membos courtesy of Tony. Hey, Salty C. Fonzie is here. Health Darby, Alien Robot Ghost, and Ray Wright. Gifted membos courtesy of Tony. Hey, Munkets. Hey, it's the Munkets. And my friends, thank you for sending those in. Very nice and generous of you. Let's see who's joining us on X. Of course, we're going over to locals for our members only after party here in a quick second. And we'd love to see you come over there and join us. But before we get over there, let's say hello to our friends on X to see who's chatting up in Elonville. And here's where we're live. Oh, and by the way, I want to shout out our friend Lectern Guy. You know, if he crosses 90,000 followers this week, he's going to buy a new gun, which sounds awesome. So we reposted that. He did it! He did it. He's getting a new gun in the house. That happened today. All right, cool. So that happened. Shout out to Lectern Guy for crossing 90K. All right, so let's see who else is here. Jim is here. Says, I love all these prosecutors, lawyers, politicians. They're all freaking out right now, trying to kiss the ring or run. That just makes my year to see them all quaking in their boots. Even if the Trump administration does nothing, leaving them wondering for the next 4 years would be an amazing punishment. Yeah, they wake up every night in cold sweats for 4 years. Trump. All for 4 years. I love it. Hey, Julie says, I'm loving these headlines. Bernie says Cohen is so irrelevant. He's now begging for a pardon. And James says Newsom wants LA burnt down since Lawrence Pelosi was the VP that got exclusive contracts and closed military bases in California. And so I'm sure there are a lot of people who are going to make a lot of money now that California has been burnt to the ground, unfortunately. And so, my friends, that is going to be it for us on the day. We are going to go over to locals, watchingthewatchers.locals.com, our members only community. We'd love to have you join us. If you just became a new member on YouTube or elsewhere, grab the stream from this morning. It was a great stream. We talked about the fire and a bunch of other things, but now we're going over to locals to hang out and debrief for a bit. Tomorrow, we're coming back early, 9 a.m. Eastern time, 7 a.m. Arizona time, 6 a.m. Pacific time, because I think confirmation hearings are starting for Hegseth at 9:30 Eastern. So we'll be here a little bit early. We'll warm the tubes up. We'll make it a nice long stream, and we'll ensure that all of Trump's cabinet members are confirmed with haste, or else. And we'll be here watching it together. So thanks for joining us. One more time, don't forget to grab your tickets. This is the final week for the watch party, the inauguration watch party, Scottsdale, Arizona. Mar-a-Lago of the Southwest. We have a huge screen, a great venue. We're going to have a great brunch, meet some people, grab your tickets, watcherlodge.com. It's going to be here on Monday, and I couldn't be more excited for it. So we can't wait to meet you. Thanks for joining us. We also want to thank our amazing mods and our meme smiths. What's up, K-Bean? Donut, mind me. We got Carrie B, Playing Hooky, Dog Digger, and Janek modding the fort down for us, keeping things nice and orderly. And so now, my friends, we will leave it there. We're coming back tomorrow morning. It's confirmation week, baby. And that's going to be Wednesday and Thursday, too, because we got Rubio, we got Ratcliffe, we got Pam Bondi scheduled for 2 days, Wednesday and Thursday. Hegseth tomorrow, Kristi Noem. It's going to be fun. So we'll see you back here tomorrow, my friends. Otherwise, I want to wish you a beautiful night's sleep. I hope you rest very well. And I hope that tomorrow morning you are back here because it's confirmation season and we need to get into it. And in order to do it appropriately, we need to see you right back here so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends. Sleep very well. I'll see you right back here early tomorrow. Bye-bye.